I've got my horse shirt and my chainsaw. Let's talk Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So in honor of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I got these monster munchies. I guess they're from Poland. They were in a Universal Yums box. And I was like, this is perfect because they look just like a little doll Leatherface. So look, see, it's just perfect. And they taste good. Hey everyone, this is David Stark from Watcher Pass, and I'm here to talk to you about Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022, the all-new reboot of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series. It's coming to Netflix on February 18th, 2022. It's a lovely way to cap off your Valentine's week with a film that has a lot of red, although it's not like love and roses. This one is blood. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a massacre. The film picks up about 50 years after the events in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, with a new group of young adults coming out to Texas and encountering probably their worst nightmare. So my hot take on this film is it's actually pretty good. I think you should watch it. It's a fitting revival of the series that puts the massacre back in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and the film has an old school feel through and through. Like the film feels like an older style horror movie, and that's definitely a good thing. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the movie, a few things I liked, a few things I didn't like, and then go into the ending. So as you can imagine, there will be spoilers. It's a horror movie. It's a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. I think you probably know about how this movie is going to go, but if you don't want to know anything about it, turn this off now because there will be spoilers. So if you want to know more about the film, you want to hear my thoughts, let's keep going. So in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you have a group of 4 idealistic young adults who go out to Harlow, Texas, basically an abandoned ghost town, and their plan is to buy the town and turn it into this kind of new utopia almost. They're going to try to get people out there who are young and have fresh ideas, and they're going to try to build like an idealistic town. But unfortunately for them, there is one resident of the town that's still there and still has her property, and it's this old lady who has this orphanage, and the orphanage appears to be abandoned except for one orphan. I think you can probably guess who this person is. So these 4 people arrive at this town. They're trying to get it set up because they're going to have an auction. They're going to have all these idealistic young adults out to buy up the different properties so they can each kind of go about and renovate this and turn this into this new ideal city. So when they get out there, they encounter this lady who is not leaving her property, and she insists that she has, like, this is her property, this is her home, that she has everyone kind of says like, no, like, get out, the bank has already foreclosed on you. And during this tussle, she eventually, kind of starts convulsing and has a heart attack. So they're taking her out to the hospital when she eventually expires. She eventually dies. Unfortunately for everyone in this ambulance, and there's only a few people in this ambulance, her son is there. Her son is this like 7-foot mountain of a person who is very mysterious. You don't really see his face, but who seems to be calm by her until she dies. And then that's when all hell breaks loose. And as you can imagine, eventually there is a chainsaw. Eventually there is a Leatherface, and the story continues. So things I liked about this movie. The setting and the choreography. I thought this film had just a fantastic setting. I mean, it's set out in like a desolate ghost town in Texas. So you have that sense of age. Like the buildings all look old. They all look worn down. They all look like they've seen better days. And that really contributes to this sense of dread in this film. Like you have some very dark corners of these buildings. You have some buildings that are falling apart when you're going through. You hear sounds, and you have this amazing setting as well that helps to contribute to the sense of dread. Like they've got this field of sunflowers in a lot of the scenes, and the sunflowers are all dead or dying. Actually, that was a lucky coincidence for the filmmakers. Apparently they were going to film in the sunflower field anyways as a callback to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And a few weeks before the filming, it hailed in that field, like in that area, and the hail killed all these sunflowers. So when they went to film, they're all kind of like brown and drooping, and it has this amazingly perfect sense of dread that like really just kind of shines through it. It's almost like you were in a field of corn, like in any other movie, except there's sunflowers. So there are some scenes where you're like going down the sunflower field, and you can't tell what's around. You're worried that something's gonna pop up. It's like dark and you can't see. It really does, like, everything about this setting contributes to this feeling of unease that just permeates this film. The second thing I really liked is the gore. I mean, like I said, this film has an old school feel, and the gore, it is very gory. Like it starts off early on. There are some really amazing practical effects. It seems like everything is pretty much practical effects, or at least made to look like practical effects. So you have just what Texas Chainsaw Massacre is known for. You've got beheadings, you've got limbs getting cut off, you've got some very gruesome ways to die, and you've got Leatherface becoming Leatherface, and so all of that just feels very visceral and very gruesome, and that's what makes a really good horror slasher film. The third thing I really liked is the old school feel, and so there's a lot of things that kind of contribute to it, but the story itself is pretty short and sweet. This film is like 81 minutes long. It doesn't get too involved in any one spot. It just kind of sets up a vehicle for this massacre and then allows the massacre to happen. So all that makes this feel like a movie from another time, like one that was just a little bit simpler. But the film also has a lot of callbacks to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. I'm not going to get anywhere near all of them. I'm not going to get even close. There's a few things that I noticed. There was that field of sunflowers. There's also a scene where someone was running from Leatherface, or there was also a scene where they had like laundry hanging on clotheslines to kind of call back to that scene. There's a lot of references to the original films, and it all contributes to this feeling that this is an older style horror movie, like a kind of a return to form. And the fourth thing I really liked are the music and the sound effects. I mean, the most kind of noticeable one is that chainsaw sound. That sounds really great. It sounds rusty, it sounds old, but they put that in some of the music as well. So there was one scene where one of the characters was like running away from Leatherface, and like there's music blaring, but then in the music there's this chainsaw sound. You can't really tell, is that Leatherface coming after her, or is that like part of the music? And it doesn't matter, because it all just contributes to this great sense of energy and fear that I really liked it. As you can tell, I really liked this movie. I thought it was really well done. But there were a few things I didn't like. None of them really killed the movie for me. I thought the movie overall was pretty good, but there were some pretty big things that I did not love. The first is the sense of deja vu. So one thing you learn early on is that the original final girl in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Sally Hardesty, is back in this film. Now, it's not the person that played her. It's another actor portraying Sally Hardesty, but she is in this film. She is part of this story. And you find out that she is now a sheriff. She's now a police officer, but she has been kind of waiting for Leatherface's return and kind of preparing for Leatherface's return. And so when she hears that he's back, she kind of like suits up and gets ready to go and act her revenge. And this felt very similar to Halloween. I think it was 2018 when the first reboot Halloween came out, where you had Jamie Lee Curtis coming back and being like prepared for Michael to come and attack her, and having this, been training for years. So it had a very similar feel, because you had like a final person prepping for this monster, and there was a lot of similarities in how they felt and how they approached this. That just, I don't know, made me feel like this is trying to be like that Halloween ride, which, I don't know, it's not a big fault, because Halloween 2018 was a great film. I loved that film. And so kind of harkening back to that is not a bad idea, but it did feel a little like I'd seen this before, and like I'd seen this plot before. And unlike in Halloween 2018, this one didn't have a great conclusion, which I'm going to talk about very soon. The second thing I did not love is just the poor decisions. I mean, look, it's a horror movie. You're going to have poor decisions. There were some pretty bad decisions in this one, though. There was one where like a chainsaw was cutting from the ceiling at someone, and they had plenty of room on either side to go left or right, and they didn't. They just kept going straight, like trying to outrun a chainsaw. Just roll to the side. You'll be fine. There was another scene where like some people were trapped in the bus and they were trying to escape, and like no one opened the window. Like everyone was just kind of like screaming during this massacre. Just little things like that like kind of left me scratching my head. Like, look, it's a horror movie. You're going to have bad decisions, but some of these were a little egregious. The third thing I did not love is one of the main characters, Lila, has this trauma. She was a survivor of a past massacre, and so she had this hinted at throughout the film. And I don't know, it didn't really feel like it was explored enough to be justified. It felt a little clunky, just kind of how they handled it. It felt like it was always back there, and so she was just a little bit off. And then when they finally had this big scene where she could kind of confront that, it fell flat. So I thought that it just felt like this was kind of added on. I didn't really know if it contributed much to the overall story. And so I felt like that was something that could have been kind of scrubbed out. The last thing I did not love is there's an anticlimactic encounter where you have this big buildup between Sally and Leatherface and how she's gonna, like, she feels like she's going to come in, save the day, or at least have an epic fight, and it's over pretty quickly. Now I'm going to go into all of that in the ending, but those are just the things I did not love. Now, in the ending, and again, I'm going to warn you, there are going to be spoilers, like massive spoilers, like this is going to spoil the movie, it's going to spoil the ending. But so like I mentioned earlier, after the mother dies in the ambulance, Leatherface kills everyone. And in that ambulance, there's a couple police officers, and one of the original adults that comes to the scene, one of the original people that comes to Harlow to change it, Nell, one of the original people that comes to Harlow to change it, Ruth, is also there, and she eventually gets killed as well. After Leatherface does this, he cuts off his mother's face and kind of puts that on, and he cuts off his. So after Leatherface does this, he cuts off his mother's face and puts that on and becomes Leatherface again. And in this respect, I thought, I honestly don't remember if Leatherface originally did this so in this respect, it felt very much like Leatherface is becoming Ed Gein, who was kind of one of the inspirations for the original Leatherface character. A very loose inspiration, because Ed Gein was not a 7-foot-tall homicidal maniac. He was just a very weird person. But the fact that he cut off his mother's face to wear it, and then later on there's a scene where he's like, looking at his mother's clothes, it felt like this was trying to go back to maybe first principles, back to kind of like the inspiration for this overall character. And I kind of appreciate that. I liked that it was maybe trying to tie Ed Gein closer to Leatherface, just to tie them together a little bit more. So Leatherface, now wearing his mother's face, makes it back to town and attacks a few people. So everyone flees once they realize there's a homicidal maniac, and they flee onto the bus. There's this original bus that took all the people that were going to buy properties in Harlow, except for the original 4 who came early. The bus took all these people out to Harlow for this auction. So everyone flees back onto that bus because that's the only place they can go and they feel safe. And at this point, you only have, from the original 4, you only have Melody and Lila alive. So Leatherface gets in the bus, as you imagine, and just starts massacring everyone. Like, this is the massacre part of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He just cuts people left and right. It is gruesome. It is violent. Unfortunately for these people, apparently they never took a school bus, because no one tries to open the window to get out. They just all kind of run, and eventually one person tries. She doesn't make it out, but maybe if everyone would have tried, some people would have survived. But no, they don't, and they get all cut down. Our 2 heroes, Melody and Lila, are hiding in the bathroom, trying to avoid this. Unfortunately, Leatherface finds them, cuts the door. They run out, and as they're running from Leatherface, a car pulls up, and it's the original Sally. She's in this car. She tells them to get in, and they're like, "Oh my God, thank you so much. Drive, drive, drive." She like looks at them and says, "It's Leatherface, isn't it? You have to stay here until I kill him." So unfortunately, their savior is here to kill Leatherface. She doesn't get them out of there. So now we have the big final confrontation: Sally versus Leatherface, 50 years in the making. So she confronts him, and she has a shotgun to him, and you're just like, pull the trigger, pull the trigger. But she talks to him for some reason, and so she confronts him, and she's like, with a shotgun, ready to go. She says, say my name. Say you know me. Say you know what you did to my friends. And you're like, what are you doing? Pull the trigger, pull the trigger. She doesn't. Leatherface, I don't know, I guess escapes and starts running to attack the girls. And as he's running, she shoots him with the shotgun and kind of hits him in the shoulder, and he runs away. So she tells the girls to get out of there in her car and keeps hunting Leatherface. And so we finally had that big confrontation. Leatherface starts running at her with a chainsaw. She's got the shotgun. She shoots at him, and somehow all the shotgun pellets just hit his chainsaw. And so now they're face to face. She stabs him in the stomach with a knife, and then Leatherface just like chainsaws her essentially in half. And that's it. That's the final encounter. And I was a little disappointed because A, she had a clear shot. She should have shot him earlier. And B, like the whole sequence ended pretty quickly. And the fact that she had been dreading this so long and then wanted him to like remember who she was, like I think she should have just got it done. But anyways, she gets chainsawed. The kids rather than driving off earlier, now start driving off, and Leatherface throws the chainsaw at their car. It hits the windshield. The car veers off and crashes, and now they're stuck with no car and Leatherface. And again, and I want to know what kind of chainsaw Leatherface is using, because this thing survives so much damage throughout this fight, and it's like getting wet from the rain. It's getting destroyed. It's getting thrown, and it seems to always work. So it's a really good chainsaw. I'm very curious what the brand is. So after they crash, a piece of like rebar or something is in Melody's leg, and so she's a little stuck. She tells Lila to get out of there, like, get out, save yourself. But Lila finds a rifle and loads it up. She's kind of like waiting for Leatherface to go and try to attack her sister, and she calls out to him and said, and like points the rifle and pulls the trigger. And I thought this could be like an interesting moment where she like has confronted her trauma. She was a little afraid of guns, and now she's got this gun. She's gonna use it and finish this off. But the gun clicks, and I thought that, like, again, this like, she has this trauma. We're supposed to feel connected to her, but it seems like it never really comes to fruition. And so the whole gun scene felt clunky when it clicked. Like, I thought maybe like a shot would be interesting, like that would then show that she's come full circle, but it clicked. Again, anticlimactic. And then the face gets hit with a shot. Sally's there with a shotgun. She shot him from like 30 feet away. Like, I don't know what kind of shotgun shell she's using, but that is not much spread. So Lila's about to run off, but Sally looks at her and says, "Don't run. If you run, he'll never stop haunting you." Then she loads a shell in the shotgun and then dies. So Lila now goes and gets the shotgun. I don't know, maybe load like 2 or 3. It seems like everyone's always running out of bullets, so like she should have loaded a couple more. She gets the shotgun and she goes into the theater where Leatherface has run off to. And in the theater, you've got this like theatrical lobby, and in the middle there was some hole that happened, and it's just full of water. This like perfect horror pool in the middle that you can't see through. I think you all know what's going to happen. She's going through the theater with a shotgun, and she hears a chainsaw sound. She sees this like big shadow, and she goes over to it, and it's some sort of like cutout from a movie. So that's when Leatherface attacks her and throws her into the water. So they both are in there. She's like scrambling out. She gets out, and she's running for the shotgun that scattered across the theater when she got grabbed. And Leatherface takes the chainsaw, still on, and like chucks it at her. It's like sliding across the ground, and it hits her leg. Again, really good quality chainsaw. That is an amazing feat. So she's down. It seems like she's gonna finally like resign herself. I think she's, she feels like she's done enough. There's not much else she can do against Leatherface. And so she kind of leans back and looks up, and she sees her sister on Leatherface, like holding him, like preventing him from hurting Lila. So we see Leatherface fighting with Melody, who's on his back. He throws her to the ground, is about to kill her, and then Lila steps in front of him with a shotgun and fires 2 shots into him. 2 shots at close range. They're finally using the shotgun at close range. Way to go. But then she's out of bullets, and Leatherface is kind of like teetering at the edge of the water. And then we see Melody grab the chainsaw. It's not, I don't think it's on, maybe it is on. And she like uppercuts him with the chainsaw. So like the end of the chainsaw hits him in the face, and he falls back. But again, it's a horror movie, so they don't make sure he's dead. They don't double check anything. They just kind of watch him sink in the water. So you can't tell if he's dead or alive. You're like yelling at them to finish it off, do something, end this, but they don't. He disappears in the water. You don't know. You're waiting for it. You know what should happen. It doesn't. He doesn't jump out of the water and grab them. We now see it's the next day. It's the next morning. They get in their car. Lila finds Sally's hat and the original picture of her friends from that original movie. And so she puts the hat on, this cowboy hat. They get in their car. I think it's a Tesla, because they autopilot back to civilization, because they're about 7 hours out from a major Texas town. And the car's about to go. The side window shatters, and Leatherface pulls out Melody as the car takes off. So now the car is autopiloting. Lila can't do anything. She turns around. She sees Melody on her knees, and Leatherface just like chainsaws off her head, holds up her head, and then starts doing the Leatherface chainsaw dance from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And that's it. That's the movie. That's how it ends. Lila is in a car, autopiloting home. Everyone else is dead, essentially. And then we do have a stinger at the end of the credits. You see Leatherface walking back to the original house, the original kind of Texas Chainsaw Massacre house. And that's it. That's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So like I said, I actually liked it. I thought it had a good old school feel. I thought it felt like a nice return to form. There were a few things I didn't love, but overall they were mostly minor. It's a horror movie. You're going to have bad decisions. You're going to have some tropes. So I think it's definitely worth a watch. If you're a horror fan, definitely watch it. If you just like a slasher film, watch it. It's a pretty good overall film. And thanks so much for watching. If you liked this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. And please check out my other content. I've got other reviews, interviews, unboxing videos, and recommendations. Thank you.